Hey, welcome to my garage. It's good to connect. Today we're talking about influence and spiritual authority and how it connects in the way that we do church. It wasn't too long ago I was invited into a church that was experiencing conflict between the elders and the pastors. One of the first questions I asked them was, well, draw me a picture of how your church works. Asked the pastor that question first, and he immediately said, well, of course, God directs us. But then he went on to draw an organizational chart. And underneath God was the pastor, and underneath that was the elders. When I went and talked to one of the elders and I asked him the same question, of course, he had God at the top, but underneath that, the box underneath that was the elders, and then the box underneath that was the pastor. They were arguing over who gets to decide. And a part of the issue came down to where they landed in this organizational chart that outlined the hierarchy. Really, the most basic problem they were facing at that point is that Jesus didn't design the church so much as an organization, but more as an organism. Let's take a look and see how that works. You see, we could think of the church sort of as an amoeba, right? You have this big amoeba. The smaller circles in here indicate people within the church. And the little larger circle indicates the things that these people cluster around. For example, oftentimes people cluster around music within the church. And so you have a few people, that's their passion, that's where their talent lies, that's where they're called to serve. Same thing could be said of children's workers, of a hospitality team, for example. You have the youth down here, women, stewards, you have all kinds of people, different groups in this whole thing. In the very middle of it, you have elders. And as a part of that elder group, the pastor sits. And the truth is that these people are commissioned to speak in to all of these groups, like this, and help them organize their activities around the larger purposes of the church. That often works because these people, they're connecting to one another and they want to do that. The problem begins to show itself when these groups come in conflict with one another. I have to be honest, I worked with youth long time ago in the very beginning of my ministry. And there was one time where in the youth department, we had this great idea, all 5 of us together. But we soon ran into conflict with the hospitality team, all 4 of them together. You know what the issue was? The condition of the kitchen after the youth group participated or used it to cook something. We didn't leave it clean enough. And so there was friction going back and forth between us. Well, this group often finds itself in the crossfire because this person is connected to this person and they may complain about how irresponsible the youth are, and someone with the youth group is connected to this person and they complain about how picky the hospitality team is. All of a sudden, this whole thing can grind to a halt. The only way we avoid that is if we understand that really it's Jesus who guides the church, who leads the church, who builds the church. And in some way, we swim in this amoeba swims in the influence of Jesus. And we have to put into practice the very things Paul talks about in Philippians, where he says, consider the interests of others as more important than your own. To do that, this group has to lead the way, where they're putting the interests of all of this group, all of these people, ahead of their own. They're putting the interests of Christ ahead of the group of this whole group. And as they do that, as they influence in this way, they're going to find that they're able to influence through spiritual authority, this amoeba to go forward. And they're going to find themselves propelled by the power of the gospel. And they're going to find themselves functioning with the grace of Jesus. And they're going to find themselves pleasing to the Lord, the builder of the church. This is messy. This is what we call messy church, because there's all kinds of relationships that are going back and forth. But the truth of the matter is while it might be messy, Jesus designed it to be the most effective approach to taking the gospel around to the world, to fulfilling the Great Commission in the spirit of the Great Commandment, to fulfilling our purpose as leaders, as disciple makers, as followers of Jesus. It's the most abundant life that we could ever experience. And so lean in to this calling that you have to serve others, to put others ahead of yourself. And as you do that, you'll find that Jesus releases not only you, but the people you serve into effective service and abundant life.